a couple more minutes.
Sounds
So
good.
I know, Lucille, you've been to Mark before.
Yeah.
And I think, Pat, did you ever go to Mark when you were up in New York? Is she muted? Is she gone? She might be gone. And Gloria, I don't believe you've been to Mark before, correct?
No, what does he do actually?
Mark is a chiropractor, but he, I think, is a magician. I send all my people to get fixed by Mark. He has a 3-session guarantee, and I love that because, you know, if he can't figure out what is wrong or he can't help you, he refers you out to the person who he thinks will, which is nice because I feel a lot of times when you go to chiropractors, there's some that have given bad names where they say you need to come 3-4 times a week for the next 12 weeks. Well, what happens at week 11? Does it miraculously something happen with week 11? If they couldn't fix, they teach you stuff after the first couple of sessions that make you feel better. Is it really going to take 11 to 12 weeks to see a difference?
And it's usually the same treatment every time. So that's why I don't know if it was the time that elapsed that made them feel better or if it was the actual, 67th treatment. So I kind of feel like it's not a good gauge of how much and how effective it actually is.
Yeah, and I use the analogy of if you have a shelf in your house that's crooked and all you're doing is going to someone and they're just adjusting you but not fixing why the shelf is crooked, it's just going to everything's going to keep sliding down to one side. And I feel Mark fixes the shelf and levels it off for you.
That's good to know.
So we're going to give everyone one more minute and hopefully they'll hop on.
Sounds good.
Let's see. Okay, I'm just managing the room, checking. How are you, Medora?
I'm good. How are you?
You know what? Pat was on mute. That's why we couldn't hear her.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. It's like a Verizon commercial.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Mark. It's 7:30. I think all that will be here are here. So Mark is a chiropractor. I can't speak. Chiropractor locally. I think he's more than just a chiropractor. He's a soft tissue practitioner. I know he does stuff with local schools and local running teams and sports teams, but he also worked with the U.S. Olympic team. Correct? What year was that? That was like 2 years ago?
I remember that.
That was from probably 2010 to 2016.
Okay.
My cat.
All right. So, yeah. So he's worked with Olympic athletes. And he's hung up his nice sweater in his office, and now he's working locally mostly, correct? Are you still traveling?
I don't work with them, although I kind of still do get emails from them occasionally. I had an opportunity to go with the speed skating team to Japan and Poland. So I did put my name into that hat because it was a new experience. They had a couple of practitioners to choose from, and they picked somebody who had already had experience with that team. So I haven't done anything with them in a while, but I still do keep in touch.
Okay, awesome. And I think Mark is, like, I call him my magician, that if Mark can't fix you, nobody can. So I send any of my clients I've broken or came to me broken that I can't fix to Mark, and Hope and Dan and Abby. They're all great practitioners, and they are right here in the Smithtown area, St. James, Wisconsin area, right by New York Sports Club and Kitty Academy and Alberg Montavani, where they give all my money for Jared's races. So Mark is here to give us a little chat about function and feel versus form. I'm just going to go close the door upstairs because I hear my dog going nuts. I think Jared might be playing ball with him. So, Mark, go ahead.
Sounds good. So, hey, guys, thanks for having me over here. One of the things that I wanted to mention, my history with Amy is quite a long time. I probably went to the old studio where she used to work. I'm going to guess maybe 15 years ago, maybe even longer than that. And I was pretty amazed at her ability to cue in order to make exercises a little bit more difficult, or to make sure that I wasn't cheating with certain exercises. She would say, all right, blink your left eye, and it would make my core fire that much more. And I was amazed. I said, how does that happen? How do you do that? And that kind of started the ball rolling for me when it came to coaching, how to become very good at cueing, how to become very good at teaching people how to feel what they're supposed to feel, and essentially making them have a good foundation so that way they can take on any kind of strength and conditioning program, and from that point essentially not get injured, and train more mindfully. So I'm a huge fan of anything that's a mindful movement type of exercise, and that includes bar, Pilates, yoga, Tai Chi, those kind of things. A lot of people like to do the ballistic stuff, the burpees for time and the workout of the day and CrossFit, and there's nothing wrong with those things, but those are more ballistic movements. You can't really be very mindful of the types of muscles that you're using when you're doing those exercises. So if you're doing the ballistic stuff, you just have to sprinkle in a little bit of the mindful stuff as well, and that'll help to balance you out. For me specifically, my ballistic stuff is going to be playing volleyball and racquetball and a lot of team sports. Like, I'm not thinking of what muscles I'm using when I'm doing that, but I even have a core line in my basement that I will use, and I will practice the things that Amy taught me and the things that we preach to a lot of people on a fairly regular basis. One of the things that we were talking about is that feel and overform. And that's the biggest issue that I see with trainers for the most part. And again, this Pilates instructors and yoga instructors are much more well-educated and knowledgeable in this particular realm. But a trainer will say, well, you're supposed to stick your butt out when you squat, or you're supposed to squeeze your shoulder blades together when you do a lat pull down. And all of those exercises are designed to hit certain muscles. But unfortunately, a lot of times the client will not feel the muscle properly. I've done so many things which were even prescribed for me in rehab. Now I have a degenerative hip that I've had for a long time, and I went through every different kind of rehab for it. Even if I was doing an exercise perfectly as the therapist requested of me, it's possible I wasn't getting any benefit from that specific exercise. In fact, I could have been doing detriment to myself. And one of the good examples of that is doing, let's say, your sideline Pilates work. You're supposed to be targeting your gluteus medius for the most part, which is your butt muscle. And a lot of times when I press our patients and I go, well, where do you feel this exercise? If they say they feel it in their thigh or they feel it anywhere other than their butt muscle, then I say, that's not where you're supposed to feel it. We're trying to target your glute medius. So we always want somebody to cultivate activity in the target structure as opposed to somewhere else. And if they become very knowledgeable, then their feel and their feedback to their instructors or their therapists or whomever is going to be more important than anything else. They need to be able to relay that information. And there's a lot of people who don't necessarily feel like they tune in well to their bodies, so they don't have any idea what they're using. But after a while, you get used to these things and you start to become, I guess it's a little bit wackadoo to say it, but introspective. I tell people you have to take inventory when you're doing any of these exercises. We like static holds to start when it comes to initial prescriptions. The reason being is because if you're doing a side lying Pilates where you're kind of holding your leg up and you're doing a static hold, then you can think to yourself, all right, tune into the glutes. I want to make sure my quad is nice and quiet. I don't want to do anything with my calf. I don't want to do anything with my foot. I also don't want to use my bottom leg to push against the table in order to lift up the top leg. So as you do this a long time, and Amy knows a lot of these cheats, then we know what people's strategies are in order to make themselves look stronger than they actually are. And that's basically the definition of a compensation pattern. We want to make sure that we strip away every single one of your compensation patterns, because even though it might be your strongest pattern right now, it'll eventually lead to an overuse or an underuse. And that's what's going to lead to pain, dysfunction, arthritis, tendinosis, tendinitis, all of those different things that are diagnosable things. It comes from a muscle imbalance somewhere way back in the day. You guys have any questions about that stuff so far?
Hold on, I have everyone muted. Let me unmute them.
Okay.
I was hearing some background noise.
And if they want to type questions as we're going, I can pretty much, I don't know if that's even possible. I'm assuming.
Yeah, there's a chat. There's a chat.
But
I unmuted everyone.
Oh, gotcha. That was your chat.
I have the control.
No, I think Mark, you're saying what is correct, because I kind of knew I have like upper calf pain. I have to see you actually,
Okay.
but then from Amy, when I was starting doing Pilates, like I was used to doing, like as you said, like HIIT workouts, PX90, and all those stuff. I was used to doing yoga to balance it out.
Mm-hmm.
But like breathing and all those such, but I couldn't find one teacher, like, because there are repetitive motions to do, but you have to feel that where that motion's supposed to work. So then you can bump it up, maybe like do it 12 times, 30 times, or whatever, but you have to feel first where that exercise is supposed to feel, or where that's. So that's what I interrupt in Pilates most of the time, that where is this, it's affecting me, because then I mentally am prepared that's where it is supposed to work and where am I benefiting from it.
Sure.
But that's where, like, because if I know, then if I'm mentally prepared, then when I'm repeating those motions, I know it's supposed to work in my like hips, or it's supposed to just take, the whole load is just to take the core exercise, that's all. So I think you are on the right track. Like, where am I hurting? It's this, when I did the coffee with you thing, where you did the stretching with the ball and such.
Oh, we do on Sunday, we do coffee in a roll.
Yeah, and I did one muscle, like, I think, I don't know what the muscle is called, where you sit on it with the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Like the sit muscle, and I cannot still, after 2-3 weeks, I still cannot press that portion with the ball, because it hurts like nobody's business. So I kind of know, I think it's the repetitive pattern of me falling back into, it's where my calf muscle is not letting me walk that much.
Okay.
But then, yeah, I think that is, that's what I'm trying to, yeah.
One of the things that we coach all of our patients on is, when somebody's trying to feel a muscle, the last thing you should do in order to cultivate a sensation in that muscle is to try harder. The reason why a lot of times people won't feel that muscle is because they're compensating, even if they're using very, very little effort. The threshold for that muscle to actually create a little bit of a sensation or a response might be so low that you might be compensating almost from the get-go. So we have people all the time, we say, no bands, no nothing. You're just going to be contracting that muscle and literally thinking about that muscle as you contract it to see if you can tune into it. So like I said, it's one of those visualization type of things, imagery. And I just read a book recently on Tai Chi, and I really thought that imagery and that mindfulness was a little bit hokey. I didn't necessarily put a lot of stock in it. It wasn't enough meat and potatoes for me. Then I thought about it, and I said, all of the exercises that we prescribe are trying to get people to use imagery and visualization to feel their muscles fire. So it's one of those things I use every day, even though, you know, grounding your feet like a tree root isn't something that I normally say. I get it now. I understand why that happened.
True. That's true.
The other thing I want everybody to understand too, which is I think an important cue, is if you have perceived tightness anywhere in your body, then always assume that that tightness has an associated weakness, either directly in the muscle that's tight or in a muscle that's somewhere near the tight muscle. And the reason why that's important is that passive stretching, I tell people all the time, passive stretching alone is not going to be very effective. We always ask the question to our patients, all right, so let's say passive stretching is the answer. Did it fix your problem? Then they go, yeah, well, it fixes my problem afterwards. And then I say, well, all right, so do you never have to stretch again? And they go, well, no, I have to pretty much stretch every day. So when that happens, I'll always tell the patient, I go, so what are you actually fixing? It is nothing that is gaining traction. It's just a loop that you pretty much have to go back in and stretch. If every day you went to stretch, you said, yeah, it's feeling a little bit looser each time, I'd go, all right, well, then that's progress. And I support it. But most of the time when patients tell me about their daily stretching routine, they say that it only gives them that day of relief, and then it pretty much goes back to being tight the next day. This is a great example of how Pilates helped me. I used to be one of those guys who couldn't really touch my toes. I had tight hamstrings. Now, from taking Pilates with Amy, I don't remember ever stretching my hamstrings, but whatever she did back 15 years ago, she must have turned on some associated muscles that allowed me to now touch the ground and touch my hands to the floor. And it's something that has stayed with me. I don't stretch my hamstrings, and I can still, from a cold body, I can still pretty much go and put my hands on the floor. That's more of learning how to use your muscles properly. If all the muscles are happy and in balance, they're going to have good elasticity. And if they have good elasticity, they will stretch well.
That's true.
Everybody should do Pilates every day.
I'm a fan of it. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
We've been doing a lot of work on finding the right muscles lately. I'm going through a course. It's called the Pelvic Postpartum Corrective Exercise Specialist. So I've been really focusing on breathing and bringing breath into the exercises, and how important your breathing patterns are with your core contraction and attaching to all the muscles you're working with. So we've been really working on a lot of back extension and back body breathing and thoracic mobility at the studio. So I've been torturing them with all that stuff lately. But definitely been seeing a huge difference in everyone's body and movement at the studio.
The diaphragm is actually attached to the low back. So if you don't breathe well, then there's a high correlation between not breathing well and having low back issues. So that's one of the foundational principles we teach everybody when we start going through our core work, is we say, number one, you have to learn how to breathe first, and then we can start, loading up your core after you learn. And actually, more importantly, separate your breathing from your core. And this is kind of one of the things that we can teach you even over the internet. Amy, so I have worked with a couple of people who now have gone on to other parts of the country, and they still routinely reach out and they say, do you know anybody in this area? Do you know anybody in this area? And so as it turns out, I've worked with clients now through virtual methods, and I've been able to use movement analysis. So essentially kind of run them through some movements, find out, get their feedback, where they're feeling their issues. And then what we do is we prescribe them a program. And for instance, there was a guy in Minnesota, we were kind of bartering. He was helping us with our website, et cetera. And he had plantar fasciitis. He went to therapists in Minnesota. He wasn't getting anywhere. We did our thing with him, our system. And after 3 sessions and giving him a lot of exercise to do on his own, he fixed his own plantar fasciitis. But sometimes you just need a really good coach, somebody who's going to be very, very nitpicky with your exercises. And we got to have patients who are going to be ambitious and take on the role of their own therapist, because you can really do very, very good, we call it professionally guided self-rehab. And again, this can be done anywhere in the world. So with core specifically, if you haven't done the core stuff with us, if you take your hands, and I want you to take your hands and put them above your hips, so they're kind of like in the soft spot of your belly. Everybody got it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now by pushing in, I want you to actually cough. Feel your hands being pushed out. Do you feel that hands being pushed out when you cough?
Yes.
That's basically going to be your core and using your bracing muscles. If you try to now push your hands out without coughing, it's almost like prepare yourself. I'm going to punch you in the stomach as hard as I can. Prepare yourself by bracing your belly. All right. That brace is what I'm looking for when it comes to core. Now, I've been bracing my belly for the last probably 15 or 20 seconds as I've been talking to you. And I don't know if any of you would know based on my voice that I would be bracing my belly. Most of the time when people brace, they're going to sound like this because they're bracing. But that means that their core and their diaphragm are intertwined and they're dependent on each other. So what we try to do is we try to teach people those two systems should be completely independent of each other. You should be able to brace and breathe regularly and have a regular conversation. So part of our core reprogramming that we teach people initially is we say in the car, at work, on the phone, wherever, go ahead and brace your belly the best you can and sit there and have a chat with whomever. Sing along with the radio, whatever it is. Keep practicing the separation of your core and your diaphragm, and you're going to start the process of having a very solid core.
So basically, you're saying that breathe through your lungs, not through your belly. It's like,
well, belly breathing is actually, even if you're bracing your core, your belly should still be able to expand and contract. And
no, that's a different thing. Like that's but like your breathing should expand your lungs and diaphragm, and you are doing that. But then only functionally, belly is going out and in. Is that?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
When people will use their brace in order to facilitate, or they're going to use their breathing to facilitate their bracing, then their core isn't going to gain as much strength as it would if those systems are. So even if somebody's doing a plank, you almost have to, again, use that introspection and take inventory of your muscles and say, am I able to breathe normally? You'll notice that when you handle a heavy load, and I always use this example, if a piano falls on your dog, and that's a terrible example, but either way, if a piano falls on your dog and you go to lift the piano off of your dog, you're going to probably clench your jaw, you're going to hold your breath, and you're probably going to kegel. And all of those things are totally fine when you need as much strength as possible. But if you're training in, let's say, Pilates, HIIT training, CrossFit, whatever it is, and you're holding your breath, jaw clenching, and kegling with every rep of every set, then you're now starting to build dependencies and associations with those subsystems on the other exercises that you're trying to do. Like I'm trying to target my pecs with a chest press, but if I'm clenching my jaw, kegling, and holding my breath, then I'm training those things in conjunction with each other, and I'm not truly targeting just my pecs. It makes people weaker when they take away these, what we call subsystems, but it helps you to target the actual muscle you're intending to target. So those are some of the things that we talk about too, is using these subsystems or avoiding these subsystems when you're doing any kind of training.
But in some cases, is it not necessary to have those subsystems?
For extra strength, like I said, if a piano falls on your dog, you're going to be using everything possible to recruit in order to do that. But if your goal is to train your glutes, let's say, then I want you training your glutes with none of those things helping. If you are a power lifter and you're trying for a 500-pound squat, I don't care what you use. You can use all of those things. And here's the thing to kind of take home with that sentiment is it's always okay to use those things if you have to, but I want you to be able to understand how to not use those things as well, so that way you can train either way. When it's dependent and you have to use that, then let's say you have to use your Kegel when you're squatting, then guess what? Your glutes are not getting the benefit. Mm-hmm. And we notice a lot. I'll tell you, I was the biggest Kegler in the world, and it was the reason why I had so many problems with my hip. When I went through this system many years ago, the person told me, oh, it's because you're Kegling. I go, I don't think that I do that. You know, I was in denial. And then I came home and then I started really taking inventory of what was happening down below. And as it turns out, it didn't matter what I was doing. I was chopping vegetables, getting out of a chair, brushing my teeth. I was Kegling constantly. And I didn't know why.
Clenching too, Mark?
Say again?
Were you a glute clencher like all the time and Kegling at the same time?
Wasn't even glute clenching. I was just Kegling. And I didn't know why that was happening. I mean, there are books that delve into that. One of the books that I read, which was interesting, is called Pelvic Power. They said that when children reach about 24 months of age, that's when they develop the neurological control over that area. And let's say a parent wants to teach their kid how to be potty trained prior to them having the neurology that allows them to do it. Then they're going to say, all right, well, you can't have an accident. You got to hold it. You can't have an accident. So what are they going to do? Maybe they're going to squeeze their cheeks together. Maybe they're going to cross their legs. Whatever they're going to do, they're trying to understand what the parents want, and they're starting to build some potential associations back then. Maybe that was me. I'm not really sure.
So we're going to blame your mom?
And when in doubt, blame my mom. She's okay with it. So, but yeah, it's really interesting. And I credit this system of not using my subsystems. I cracked a jaw. I cracked a tooth at the gym. I was the biggest breath holder in the world. So when I unlearned these patterns and I started to learn how to use my body, I'll call it properly, then my glutes started to actually wake up. My hamstrings started to wake up. I started to notice that the contour of my legs was even a little bit different because I was truly targeting the muscles I was trying to target. So it was pretty much an epiphany for me. And we try to share this with anybody that comes in because obviously if they've failed many other types of therapy, this is a conversation that rarely people will have with a therapist. So these are the things that we try to talk about. And I always say that we are the office of unpopular opinions. The things that people expect to hear from a therapist, they're probably not going to hear from us. You guys have any questions?
I like something different, yes.
Is that hopes?
It is.
So I've been noticing a lot of people with hip issues that I noticed are over Keglers. How do you feel about being Kegel crazy and hip dysfunction and hip tears?
I would probably say that it is going to be number one on my suspect list when somebody comes in with either hip pain, a low back issue, or an SI joint dysfunction. Those three things kind of go hand in hand with each other. And I absolutely will have the Kegel breath hold and jaw conversation with them on the first session if they're going to come in with hip complaints or with a potential disc issue in their low back. That was me too. I had a disc issue. I had epidural injections. So I went through the whole gamut of learning because of my own dysfunctions. All the things better for me being as dysfunctional as I was because I experienced most things that patients experience. But at 40, almost 8 now, I had hip replacement scheduled at 39.
Oh.
And I had my pre-op testing. I went into the city. I called up when they were doing the mass call when everybody was asking questions and everybody else on the line sounded really old. And I was like, I'm 39. Why am I? And I chickened out. So I literally chickened out from my hip replacement at 39. And at 48, I feel like my hip is in a better place than it was 10 years ago. I feel younger, more mobile. I couldn't walk one arm of the mall without having to sit down. I would literally we were going on a trip to Disney, which includes a lot of walking, and I would lay out how many leaves should I take for the day. I'm bringing my foam roller with me. Like, it consumed me. And now I don't think about it. Now I go walking with my wife, 3, 4 miles, 5 miles, whatever it is. So I, through this process, and this is the same thing, like all you guys need is a good coach. Nobody can really do the things to you in order to make you feel better. And that goes for massage therapy, acupuncture, anything that's done to you, I consider a passive therapy. When you actually use your brain and you learn how to use muscles differently in your body, you are now doing your own rehab. And that's what's going to give you tons of mileage with the stuff. If I do things to you and I do soft tissue work and I do whatever, I may make you feel immediately fantastic, but you're going to walk out of the office and that's going to unfortunately expire at some point. So I don't want patients, my measure of success, and I hope that you guys, wherever you are in the country, I want you to understand that this should be your measure of success too. Don't use the measure of success as when you leave the office, you feel great, because most therapists can do that to you. Your measure of success should be, when I leave the office, do I have to go back? And if you say, I don't feel the need to go back anymore, the therapist did their job. If you have to go back weekly, monthly, whatever it is, because things break down again, and it's the same thing that breaks down all the time, the therapist is not doing you any service. That's just logical, common sense approach.
It's hard to find a good one. Like I have to come to you. That's what I said. But then it's hard to, like, almost it's been 10 years for my calf pain. Like nobody is able to find it. But then like I kind of getting to a point that it's helping me a bit,
Okay.
but not to an extent that it is. But then again, like after listening to you, that makes sense totally, that nobody has to see that, okay, yeah, I have to go back again and again to have that feeling, when you can do it by yourself at home. You have like, I need, like, that's kind of like, you can say ruthless or orthodox person who needs to drill into your brain that this is what's wrong and this is what you have to do it. Like, not that like, okay, I just like put honey and something, like, oh, okay, you are good to go, and then next day you are back to the same thing. So
It's the hardest thing. I remember not long ago, 2-3 years ago, my wife and I were driving upstate, and I got a knot in my shoulder. And my initial response, after already knowing the things that I know, my initial response was, oh, I wish just somebody would rub this out, because that's our instinct. You know, somebody rubs it out, it feels better, it gives you that immediate relief. But you know what I did is I kind of interrupted myself and I go, all right, I understand that that's what I would like to do, but let me do the opposite of what seems logical. And I went and I sat there with my arm on the back of the other chair in the car, and I started to contract the muscle that was complaining, and I know how to contract those muscles. So it gave me, I wouldn't say that it gave me as much relief, but it went away and it never came back. So that, to me, you know, if somebody rubbed it, it would probably feel okay. I'd have to have it done the next day and the next day again. By contracting the muscle and giving it good neurological input, the problem pretty much went away and I forgot about it.
that's the best therapy at all.
Right. Not having to go back. That's the thing. That should be everybody's measure of success.
Yes.
Even like in the athletic training world, because I work with a lot of sports teams, I said the best athletic trainers are the ones that are sitting there reading the paper, because they've done a good job of teaching their athletes how to prevent injury. If they, which they become combat medics. So they don't have the time to do all the preventative work with the athletes. So the athlete says, oh, I got to get my adductors worked on. I need this tape. I need that tape. So they're just kind of doing patchwork stuff to get the athletes ready for competition. And I said, my best time to work with any sports team is going to be during their off season, because that's when I can pretty much do an analysis. I can check every muscle that I feel is necessary to be checked, that promotes their particular sport. I can give them their program, their activity, and then they're going to make themselves more resilient to the rigors of their sport once their season begins.
That makes more sense instead of doing a patchwork job.
I agree.
And what's great is Mark has this huge YouTube channel with all the exercises that he says you need to work on. So if you go home and you're like, crap, what was that exercise he said? Everything's on his YouTube channel, which is a great resource for people. And actually, sometimes I'm like, all right, you need to work on this. Go here. And I refer people over to your YouTube channel. So if you're getting paid for YouTube, I want a percentage.
I'm just looking to see if I could do a share screen. Zoom will not be able to record the contents of your screen until it is quit. I'm going to try pressing later and see, because I don't want to quit Zoom.
Do you want me to open it? Because I could probably open it.
Yeah, if you can.
Okay, so I'm going to go to share screen. Hold on. And I'm going to go to YouTube. If I can get there, if it will let me. Okay, so I'm here. Let's open. Oh, there it goes. Let me go to YouTube. Let's go to YouTube.
Curious cat.
We are so used to animals walking across our screens. We have dogs, we have cats. Cats seem to like my voice lately. They come when I'm teaching. Okay. So that's a
Thanks
big
for visiting
thing.
the True Sport Care YouTube channel, your #1 resource for injury management and sports performance. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel for our latest and greatest updates in the world of sports medicine. This specific video should help you navigate to your home exercise program prescribed for you by the doctors at True Sport Care. The magnifying glass closest to the top right corner of this video is specific to our channel. If you enter the name of the muscles that you were given or the exercise that you were given, In this magnifying glass, it should take you directly to the video corresponding to that exercise. There's a magnifying glass that's closer to the top of the page, and this is more for all of YouTube, so you may not specifically get our video. Here's a hint. Make sure when you do watch the video that you recognize one of the doctors is either performing or demonstrating the exercise in that video, then you know it's from our office. Thanks, good luck with your exercises, and hopefully you will be fixed as soon as possible.
Is there, so if you can see, they have, dead bug, I love dead bug. We were just doing that today. So you have playlists, and the playlists, I believe, are broken up by,
My area of complaint.
by area, like cervical, upper extremity, and all the exercises in there. So make sure to go to YouTube and subscribe to his channel.
They don't actually let me alphabetize, believe it or not, on YouTube. So that's why they're just going to be listed based on how many views or based on the most recent edition. We do add all the time. I think we have 127 videos. Just about every muscle that we prescribe is listed here. If we come up with a new exercise that we like, then we usually go ahead and we'll add it to the YouTube channel. The one thing that I will say,
Where do you want me to go, Mark?
I don't want to mess up your name, Mrs. Gupta. How do you say your first?
Yes.
How do you say your first name?
No, it's my son's name. Madhur is my name.
Madhur. Okay. So what I'd like for you to do, Amy, is I'd like you to pull up the lower extremity activations. And I'd like you to go to the soleus.
Am I making anyone dizzy yet?
No, you did that this morning.
Seated or soleus squat?
So there are a number of soleus activations, and what I want you to do as an experiment is just try this soleus activation, see if this helps.
Okay. This one is done seated position. It's essentially a seated calf raise, but what people aren't necessarily aware about is they don't know that they're actually contracting their toes, and they do that inadvertently. So we'd like you to take your foot. I'd like you to keep the ball of your foot pressing against the ground. Your heel will be as lifted as it can possibly get, making sure your toes stay completely relaxed. You can also take your foot and you can roll your foot towards your big toe side, or you can roll your foot towards your little toe side, and you can actually see which one feels more challenging. Whichever one is more challenging is the one that we'd like you to do. This is the seated soleus.
So that's another good point that I guess is brought up from this particular video is when we prescribe exercises for people, the more uncomfortable they are, the more the patient needs it. So just because you do something and you go, oh, that's really crampy or uncomfortable, it means that it's probably weak. The more your body naturally, the first inclination for any exercise that you ever do is going to be your body's position of strength, your position of comfort, or your position of ease. So when we prescribe exercises, every set or should be just a little bit different than the set before, because you want to explore new angles, vectors, just to kind of see what you feel when you do it. And if you go just a little bit differently one way with any exercise and you go, oh yeah, that's really a lot more uncomfortable, then that's your position of weakness. And you should always be training into your position of weakness, not your position of strength. You're already strong there. So you want to find your positions of weakness, but your body naturally will not want to go there. So again, in your brain, you have to override that and go, no, I'm going to be searching for position of weakness. Another weird thing, again, unpopular opinion. People are like, these exercises suck. They really hurt. I go, I know, but you need it. And it actually pays off.
I didn't mean to do that. Sorry.
That's all right. We got what we needed in there.
Okay.
No, you're right. Like as you kind of become uncomfortable, your body goes towards the comfortable side of, and then it just merges into what makes you comfortable, eventually giving you more pain.
Yeah. So we always try to teach people new concepts when it comes to their workouts, when it comes to their therapy, when it comes to a lot of different things. But again, it's almost, it's contrary to somebody's natural instincts. And that is something that we always have to try to do. Again, the body is always seeking, it's seeking pleasure and it's trying to avoid pain stimuli. So when we do our exercises, you can rest assured that you are naturally trying to avoid discomfort. Meanwhile, we're trying to get you to safely train into it. Safe, but challenging. We always say that. Safe but challenging.
Anyone have questions?
Any other questions?
Now I'm gonna look up on his YouTube for my psoas that always bother me. So I want to look at that.
Good exercise. If it feels tight, then it's a good bet that it probably needs to be exercised a little bit just to see. And psoas is on there.
Yeah, my psoas are always tight. Hip flexors also. So I'm definitely gonna check that out. Appreciate it.
Yeah, if your hip flexors are always tight, check out psoas, check out rectus femoris. Those are two key muscles when it comes to tight hip flexors. And again, make sure you pay attention to all of the little nuances of the videos. Like with rectus femoris specifically, with main hip flexor, you're going to be flexing your leg and extending the knee, but you don't want to use your calf or your foot, and you don't want to use the counter or the opposite leg for counter pressure. So if you're doing that, you're going to go, holy moly, it makes my leg feel that much heavier. But guess what? That's the true strength of your rectus femoris.
Yeah, it's like what Amy said this morning. You said something about keep your hips still or keep something, the muscle still, and I didn't understand what you meant by that.
Yeah.
So I guess it's trying to like to contract something. You just have to train your mind. It's like with the breathing. Like I've been doing the box breathing and all the different things because I'm into all different types of exercise and dancing and whatnot. So,
Yeah, we want everybody
right, Amy?
body ninja.
I'm always sore. But I'll definitely check out your YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's up there. It's free for anybody who wants it. I mean, I've been contacted by people in other states that were using they came across the channel and they said, I've been using your exercises. I can't believe how good I feel because of how specific they are. I go, great. You know what? It's a free resource. Why not? Everybody use it. I don't care.
That's true.
Awesome. And it's what, True Sports Care, correct?
True Sport Care. Yeah, you'll be able to see it. It has our logo on it, which I think
Yeah.
they put on
I'll
the
put it in
flyer.
both groups. I'll put it in the community group. I'll put it in the members only group.
Okay.
No, I subscribed
Okay, great.
already.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
Perfect. Yeah, I don't know if we're going to be adding a ton more new videos, but again, whatever we have, any kind of new information, we're going to get it and put it on there for you guys. So
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for taking time out of your night for us, Mr. Mark.
thanks for having me.
Thank you, Mark.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hope we said hello, and thank you so much. Maybe we'll see you on a Zoom class one day.
Okay, I could do that.
We have about 25 classes a week, so there's always time.
All right, I can embarrass myself some more. Sure, why not? All right, guys.
And enjoy the
All right,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Everybody, take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.